The year was 1921, and America was in the midst of Prohibition. A young man with the last name Carol and a companion were hauling moonshine liquor when they were pulled over by police. The police ultimately found 67 quarts of illegal moonshine, and both men were promptly arrested. They were convicted at trial, and the case was appealed, ultimately finding its way all the way up to the level of the United States Supreme Court. In 1925, the Supreme Court ruled that the stop and search of the vehicle by police was constitutional, and the rationale was as follows. Cars, by their very nature, are highly mobile, and two, because of that mobility, the evidence, in this case moonshine, could have easily been disposed of. There was also the factor that it was late at night and it was impractical for the police to obtain a search warrant to search the car. Thus was born the Carol Doctrine. Under a Carol search, police no longer needed consent or a valid search warrant to search the vehicle. Instead, police could search a vehicle without consent or a valid search warrant if they have probable cause to believe that an item or items of contraband are located inside the car. Contraband, meaning its criminal nature is immediately apparent. Hold on a minute, the court said. We're not going to lie just to search willy-nilly. We're going to set forth some limits and restrictions. Under the scope of a Carol search, if the item or object that initiated the search can fit, it can be searched, including locked containers in the trunk. It is a Carol search that's going to play such a pivotal role in the video we're about to watch. This case involves two California game wardens. Now, just because I'm a retired South Dakota game warden doesn't mean I'm going to cut these clowns any slack. There's something I need to bring up right here and now, otherwise it's going to follow this story all the way to the end and it's going to taint whatever subsequent discussion we have. There is this continuing myth that game wardens are exempt from the Fourth Amendment to the United States Constitution. Let me make this clear. As an old game warden who doesn't want to be argued with when it comes to game warden authority to search, game wardens are not exempt from the Fourth Amendment to the United States Constitution. No, game wardens cannot walk into your house without consent or a valid search warrant and start rummaging through freezers and fridges and such. I'll cover that in more detail as we go through the video.
When one is questioned by police, or any government official for that matter, you have no obligation to answer their questions. In fact, it's your right to not answer their questions, and that is ratified by the United States Constitution. Welcome back to San Joaquin Jr. Today's video is coming to us from the channel, Luke's Outdoor Adventure. Be sure to head on over to his channel and give him credit for this video. On December 23rd, 2023, Luke was out hiking in the Cleveland National Forest, located in San Diego, California. As he's doing so, he is approached by Game Warden Smith, badge number 860, who starts to question him about what he's doing and why he is here. Somewhere between when they start questioning Luke and when the video starts, the topic of a firearm gets brought up. At which point, Luke pulls his phone out to record the interaction. Now, before we jump into the video, I want to preface it by saying Luke answered way too many questions, but he's not well versed in his rights.
So if you have a firearm in the vehicle, law enforcement has a right to inspect that firearm and make sure it's unloaded, okay?
Sure.
So that's what I'm going to do.
It's unloaded.
Okay.
Can I get it out for you?
No, you cannot.
Love him or hate him, Smith was right to deny that.
Okay. Can you just step over there for me? You can come over there. Do you have any game in the vehicle?
No game.
Okay, step over there, please.
I don't consent to any searches.
I understand that. I'm going to check your shotgun and make sure it's unloaded. Okay.
It's on the other side.
On the other side?
Yeah. It's in the back underneath my car.
How'd you get on the other side? Wasn't it too rutted out for your vehicle?
No, this thing does pretty well with the all-wheel drive. Yeah, I was hunting earlier down south, that's why I have my shotgun.
Okay.
And then no, and then I'm just exploring out here to see if there's any deer. I see some tracks on the road when I first came up, so then I just kept going, and then I got a little too deep, so I wasn't sure where to do. So I was like, I'll just keep going north and try to get out of here.
Are you deer hunting too?
No, I don't have a deer tag. My deer tag's expired.
Okay, are there any other firearms besides the shotgun?
No, sir.
Are there handguns or
No, sir.
rifles?
No animals?
No, sir.
Okay, it's got slugs.
That's just for protection. I'm not hunting with those. I've had some run-ins with migrants, and I just keep them just for protection.
As an old game warden, I'm not so sure that Luke is being 100% honest here.
Okay, and then And what I'm going to do is make sure there's no other firearms in the vehicle.
That's okay.
Warden Smith, what are you doing? This is a vehicle search equivalent to a fishing expedition. There's something called the CATS test, and it's a two-pronged test. Does Luke have an expectation of privacy in his car? Yes. Is that expectation of privacy reasonable? Yes. Everything that Officer Smith is doing, as we will discuss in a little bit, is unconstitutional. I don't care about what the law in California says. I care about the Constitution.
You live here local or?
Yeah.
And you said you stopped to like readjust your bike?
Yeah, the straps are coming loose, so I just stretched it back up.
Were you hunting on your e-bike earlier?
Earlier, yeah. Yeah.
You got your hunting license and everything?
Yeah, I do. Yes, sir.
Do you mind if I check that out?
It's in my backpack.
Okay.
In the front seat.
Okay.
Yep, I'll be talking about the license thing later.
Do you mind if my partner checks in?
No, go ahead. It's in my wallet. It's in an orange little case in my wallet.
In his backpack. Signing license.
And where's your backpack?
It's in the front seat.
Just gonna make sure you're legal.
No, that's totally fine.
In here?
It should be.
Oh.
Yes, right there.
Barely open in front of you.
That's fine. It's in the orange where the money's at.
Right here?
Yeah. And then it's all in there.
Okay. Are you a Utah resident or?
I'm a California resident. I have a business in Utah.
Got it. Okay, going back in your wallet and put your wallet back in your backpack.
Okay, thank you.
You gonna find another spot this morning and go hunting?
I think I'm gonna head home. Yeah.
Luke, what you're about to say affirms you probably should have been quiet.
I was in the and I saw some deer tracks. I've never seen any deer out there, but
Okay.
there was some. I was looking for a rabbit, but nothing.
Luke, let me be your newest best friend. Just like Junior said up front, you talked way too much.
Yeah. I honestly
Content or content?
just content, looking for content.
Got it.
I just like getting out on this thing. I have an e-bike business actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so we do
Nice.
e-bike rentals. So I
yeah.
suited this thing up to be able to explore out here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we
just to
use
cover distance.
We use some e-bikes too, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So.
Honestly, it's all right. It's a little not as.
Yeah.
I was struggling on the hill.
Okay, so if you have firearm in the vehicle, law enforcement has a right to inspect that firearm and make sure it's unloaded, okay?
Sure.
So that's what I'm going
It's
to do.
unloaded.
Okay.
Can I get it out for you?
No, you cannot.
When I said Warden Smith was right not to let Luke go get the gun for him, there's two reasons for that. First is officer safety, and yes, that's legitimate. People complain about officer safety. Well, when it's taken to a level where it's used as an excuse to violate rights, I got a problem with that too. The other one is when you let people back into vehicles, they grab stuff. Items of evidence, for example. You just don't know what they're going to do once they get back into that vehicle. As far as Warden Smith's claim that, well, he can just go into a vehicle and search for guns in order to see if they're loaded or unloaded, I'm like, what? He doesn't have a valid warrant. He doesn't have consent. And he sure doesn't have probable cause that there's a gun in there that might be criminally possessed some way. I mean, if they can get into a vehicle to check for guns that they don't even know are in the vehicle, let alone whether they're loaded or unloaded, to see if they can find a gun that they don't know is in there that may or may not be loaded or unloaded. According to Warden Smith in the state of California, I mean, anyone in the state of California, you could be a visitor from Ireland, for goodness sake. If you're in a motor vehicle in the state of California, you have no Fourth Amendment protection when you get into a motor vehicle. I don't buy any of that, because no state can trump Supreme Court case law. States have the authority to enact laws that can be more restrictive than case law. But to do anything other than that means the case law doesn't exist. I think Warden Smith's full of shit. I don't care if he's a game warden. That doesn't mean anything according to the Constitution. And I haven't even done the game warden stuff yet. Whether or not Warden Smith and the other clown can get into the vehicle to search or inspect for game after they've been told, no, I don't want you going into the vehicle. Well, they're already in the vehicle because of this whole thing about, well, we get to look for guns to see if they're loaded or unloaded. So everything becomes a moot point regardless about whether or not they want to do an inspection or search for game in the vehicle. You better believe it sounds confusing, and it shouldn't be this way. I'm going to try and unconfuse it for everybody. I can't cover every angle. I have to stick to the basics. Generally speaking, there are 4 ways an officer can get into a vehicle lawfully. Number 1 is a valid search warrant. Number 2 is an inventory search. That's got its own rules and regulations. We're not going to get into that. The other one is probable cause of items criminally possessed under a Carol search or knowing, willing, and voluntary consent granted by somebody who has a legitimate authority to grant consent. One other way that a warden can get into the vehicle is when they perform what are called administrative inspections for game. And I will explain how that is supposed to work from a legal perspective. Inspections are not searches, searches are not inspections. The public controls inspections, law enforcement controls a search. Inspections are not based upon an element of criminality. Inspections are not contingent or hinged upon an element of criminality. In order to perform a lawful inspection, officers have to articulate probable cause to believe that the person is in possession of wildlife or wildlife parts. And here's why that has been deemed constitutional. Each state has a compelling interest in the management and protection of its natural resources. That, coupled with the fact that vehicles have a reduced expectation of privacy, and because of their mobility and the ease with which evidence can be disposed of, that is the balancing test. The protection and management of the public wildlife resource versus the constitutional issues, and the courts split it in half. How about we never lose sight of the fact that poachers poach? And what do they do with their poached animals? They put them in their vehicles and they transport them. This is an important part of wildlife law enforcement, knowing how to conduct an inspection. I don't know what California's problem is. From what I'm understanding, if it's true anyway, that the way they conduct business is a violation of constitutional rights pretty much across the board. Alrighty, time to go to school, how to conduct a lawful inspection for wildlife and wildlife parts in a motor vehicle. Hey folks, my name is Dave McCray, State Game Warden. Just wanted to ask if you're transporting or otherwise in possession of wildlife or wildlife parts this afternoon. No, we're not. Okay, there's no indication that they are. Have a safe trip home. Next vehicle. Howdy folks, Dave McCray, State Game Warden. Just wanted to know if you're transporting or otherwise in possession of wildlife or wildlife parts this afternoon. And the driver or somebody in the vehicle, indicate, yes, we are. Okay, what kind of wildlife? Well, we've been hunting quail earlier. Okay, very good. Where's it located in the vehicle? Oh, it's in the back in that blue cooler. In the blue cooler. Okay, very good. Now, I see there's a red cooler beside it. What's in the red cooler? Oh, that's Coke and bologna sandwiches. Assuming there's no more information and there's nothing in plain view like feathers, blood, or hair, can the officer inspect the contents of the red cooler? Well, the answer is yes, you can inspect the contents of the blue cooler because the traveler said that there's quail inside the blue cooler. But what did they say about the red cooler? It's Coke and bologna sandwiches. You don't see any indicators that it might have game inside? No, you don't inspect the red cooler. Why, guys? Because then it would become a search. What have I been saying? Travelers control the scope of an inspection. Officers control the scope of a search. Now, for the officer who inspected the blue cooler, what would it take for him to go from an inspection into a search? Probable cause, consent, valid warrant. Oh, I can hear those light bulbs popping on all the way up here in Maine. Couple things before we close out the video. The first is, why do you buy hunting and fishing licenses? And the last will be the mistakes that Luke made while talking to the officers. I want to make sure I don't forget that. About licenses. Back in the 1930s, of course, the land was consumed by drought. So both wildlife and fisheries resources were dwindling. In some cases, they were disappearing. So the sportsmen and women of the country went to the government to say, you know what, we need to do something to better manage and protect these resources. And the government said, okay, That's how the purchasing of a hunting and fishing license came into being. Now, there's a 10 to 11% excise tax on hunting and fishing equipment. That money is collected every year, goes into the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and then it's divvied back to the states. And the formula they use is largely upon the number of licensed hunters and anglers in each state. Every dollar that you spend on a hunting or fishing license, the money is matched 3 to 1. Every dollar you spend on a hunting license, match 3 to 1. Every dollar you spend on a fishing license, match 3 to 1. Now you know why wardens check licenses. They have lawful authority because that's the revenue stream. And something else to consider is that those who hunt and fish without licenses, guys, they're not putting 1 penny into the programs that benefit wildlife and fisheries resources. Not in your state, they're not. So that, again, is why wardens check licenses. There's a saying that sportsmen and women pay for conservation. It's true. It's as true today as it was 100 years ago. Unfortunately, very few hunters and anglers are aware of this. There's something else you should know. With the exceptions of the states of Missouri and Oregon, general tax dollars are not spent to pay for these programs. It's only license fees and the excise tax match. And private conservation groups, they step up to the plate. Everything I've been talking about, it's a 2-minute Cliff Notes version. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on, and there's a lot of information that anybody who cares should be reading up on.
Okay. Can you just step over there for me?
You can come over here.
Do you have any game in the vehicle?
No game.
Okay, step over there, please.
I don't consent to any searches.
I understand that. I'm going to
Okay.
check your shotgun and make sure it's unloaded.
Okay. It's on the other side.
On the other side?
Yeah. It's in the back underneath my car.
How'd you get on the other side? Wasn't it too rutted out for your vehicle?
No, this thing does pretty well with the all-wheel drive. Yeah, I was hunting earlier down south
In a previous video, I mentioned what it means to law enforcement when they hear someone start a sentence with, "I'll be honest," or "to be honest." It suggests that a lot of what was said up until that point was deceitful, and now the person's about to say something that has a kernel of truth to it. Just like they pick up on when somebody says, "Well, to tell you the truth." So I'm going to back it up here a few seconds, and you're going to get about a half a second, but we'll find it. But I'll point it out to you, not a problem.
the all-wheel drive. Yeah, I was hunting earlier down south. The all-wheel drive. Yeah, I hunted earlier down south.
I'll be honest. See, he started to say it, and he almost said honest. But it's like he caught himself. I'll be. Go back and listen to it on your own. You'll hear it.
That's why I have my shotgun.
Okay.
And then, no. And then I'm just exploring out here to see if there's any deer. I see some tracks on the road when I first came up. Luke
said he was looking for deer and deer tracks. Now, that doesn't mean he was hunting deer. It's not a confession, but it's almost creeping into the territory of being an admission. And in just a few short seconds, the plot is going to thicken, and Smith picks up on it.
So then I just kept going, and then I got a little too deep. So I wasn't sure where to do, so I was like, I'll just keep going north and try to get out of here.
Are you deer hunting too?
No, I don't have a deer tag. My deer tag's expired.
Okay, are there any other firearms besides the shotgun?
No, sir.
Are there handguns or
No, sir.
rifles?
No animals?
No, sir.
Okay, he's hunting it's got slugs. It's got slugs.
That's just for protection. I'm not hunting with those. I've had some run-ins with migrants, and I just keep them just for protection.
He kind of stumbled there at the end, didn't he? He's using a shotgun with slugs for personal protection, which he can do. I'm not saying there's a problem with that, except when you look at the totality of the circumstances. He just said he was looking for deer and deer tracks. He said he didn't have a deer license, which would be problematic if you're hunting deer, and Warden Smith just found slugs on the shotgun. Slugs. Probably a 12 gauge, that'd be 1 ounce of lead, kind of like a Civil War Min-A ball. That's probably all you can use in that area to hunt deer, because it's safer than using a high-powered rifle. But the idea of using that for protection from migrants, it just doesn't make sense to me.
You gonna find another spot this morning and go hunting?
I think I'm gonna head home. Yeah. I was in the And I saw some deer tracks. I've never seen any deer out there, but there was some. I was looking for a rabbit.
You gonna find another spot this morning? Go hunting?
I think I'm gonna head home. Yeah, I was in the. And I saw some deer tracks. I've never seen any deer out there, but there was some. I was looking for a rabbit, but nothing. But nothing. Yeah.
This is where Luke lost me. I don't mean like I didn't understand he was saying. No, I understood with absolute clarity. I can say with 80% confidence that he just said he was hunting deer. Pretty much the only thing he really wants to talk about in terms of hunting is looking for deer and deer tracks. Looking for deer and deer tracks. Why do you look for deer tracks? Yeah, to see where they're crossing the road, and they indicate that there's activity, that there's deer in that area. So you're going to end up setting up on it, or at least spend more time looking. But did you hear those 3 words? When he talks about the deer and the deer tracks, he started to say there was some, and all of a sudden he threw in he was looking for rabbits. The first time he mentioned he was hunting rabbits. There was some, stop. There was some, what, Luke? What were you starting to say when all of a sudden you caught yourself and then mentioned that you were looking for rabbits? There was some what? There had to be something that you felt was incriminating, which is why you stopped in mid-sentence, and then your brain threw out there that looking for rabbits. Guys, do you know what the problem is with that? You only had one gun, a shotgun. And what was the shotgun loaded with? Slug. What kind of critters do you usually shoot when you use a slug? It ain't rabbits. It ain't rabbits. I don't know, Luke. I don't know.